Alright guys, and welcome back. Today we're going to check out another SCP video. Today it's going to be Dr. Wondertainment. Today we're going to check it out, and I'm not really sure what to expect with this one. The last time I heard about Dr. Wondertainment was in the Mr. Life and Mr. Death video. That was kind of weird. I thought to myself, why would you create something like this? So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into it and find out who Dr. Wondertainment is.
Dr. Wondertainment. The SCP universe is one often presented as cold, cruel, and unforgiving. Inexplicable phenomena continually break the laws of nature, and horrifying creatures stalk the night, with rarely an explanation given to where they came from. The presence of Dr. Wondertainment, then, is a stark contrast to many of the common themes inherent to the SCP universe, with less of a focus on strange, dark, horror, and more on fun. That is not to say that Dr. Wondertainment and their inventions aren't strange and inexplicable, but there's a current of whim.
What the hell am I looking at right now? Is this a fish head man wearing a top hat? What? What? What does this have to do with Dr. Wondertainment? All right.
Whimsical fun connecting them. Creations that are intended to entertain and amaze children, despite many of them being just as potentially dangerous as many other SCPs.
Okay.
The lack of canonicity within the SCP universe means information about Dr. Wondertainment is loose and scattered at best, so this video will mostly focus on their various inventions.
So, what is he? He got snails? Is he a snail guy, I guess? I mean, that's a pretty specific thing to draw in there. Okay. Snails.
Dr. Wondertainment is a highly mysterious figure, although of course there are a number of rumors. It's unclear whether Wondertainment is a man, woman, group, or an entire organization. Some say it's a man named Dr. Reginald Filbert Lionel Archibald.
This is an interesting piece of artwork here. So, I'm seeing the robot that was pictured earlier. I'm seeing a shark, a fish, a cat, a pony, some candy, a billiards ball, the number 6 ball, a humanoid figure, and a snail, a fire-breathing snail. I guess these are creations of Wondertainment? Okay, so alright, interesting.
Is a man, woman, group, or an entire organization. Some say it's a man named Dr. Reginald Filbert Lionel Archibald Westinghouse Wondertainment III.
I want that one to be true because of the name. That name is ridiculous, yet somehow awesome.
Others say a woman named Dr. Isabel Helga Anastasia Parvati Wondertainment V, and others say it's a whole group of reality benders. There are numerous interpretations, but the various toys and creations are generally more important than the Willy Wonka-esque entity that creates them. These inventions often come with a very lighthearted document explaining how amazing the toy is, and often have some cautionary warnings or legal
object class fun, special containment procedures. All junior researchers are to have hours of anomalous fun with their new SCP Foundation Containment Site Playset. Interesting. The SCP Foundation Containment Site Playset contains everything a junior researcher such as yourself needs to secure, contain, and protect anything you can imagine. Simply add any item into the containment cell, and our patented Insta-Anomalizer technology will give it a unique set of anomalous properties you can experiment on. Holy cow. Addendum. Do not add living creatures, weapons, or items with pre-existing anomalous properties to the containment cell's Insta-Anomalizer. Dr. Wondertainment is not responsible for any physical or mental damage caused by misuse of the SCP Foundation Containment Site Playset. Ages 8 to 14, some assembly required, batteries not included. Interesting. Man, so it's a playset designed to look like an SCP containment facility, but has a containment cell or something called the Insta Anomalizer. Oh man. It just reminds me of all those playsets as a kid that were always advertised on TV. From the ones when I was real young, right? Like the He-Man Castle Grayskull set to like the newer like Lego type stuff. Not gonna lie, I kind of want a little SCP containment like diorama set. That'd be that'd be kind of cool.
Notices. These anomalous creations are occasionally found.
Also, it's an anomalous item that can create other anomalous items. It says you can put other stuff into it. So if I put like a wristwatch into it, it would turn that into an anomalous wristwatch. Oh man, this is one of those things. This is like the clockwork one where like there's so much like possibilities for this, you know? Like what if you took something normal, put it into the Dr. Wondertainment playset, and then took that and put that into the clockworks? Man, it's killing me.
By ordinary children or families, generally leading to disastrous results before being contained by the SCP Foundation. Although it's truthfully unclear whether Dr. Wondertainment intends for these inventions to be harmless fun for children or has more sinister motives, there's always a theme of whimsy present. The first Wondertainment creation contained by the Foundation was SCP-445, Super Paper.
Super Paper.
These stacks of paper cannot be torn, burned, glued, or taped, and liquid has no adverse effect on it. When folded, however, the super paper takes on unique anomalous qualities related to the form it was folded into. For example, when folded into a paper crane, it becomes animate, flying around the room.
What?
When folded into a cup, it becomes rigid and sturdy, capable of holding extremely hot liquids with no trouble. This allows for a limitless amount of creativity on the folder's part, but there's also a large degree of danger present.
Oh, wow.
When folded into the form of a knife, the super paper becomes incredibly sturdy and sharp, equivalent to metal weaponry. When balled into a wad, the super paper functions as a grenade, exploding, easily causing death.
What? Get out of here.
SCP-846...
Oh, hold on. Before we move on. So, I can see where people are starting to say that this Wondertainment guy might be like a reality warper. Between Mr. Life and Mr. Death and like this paper we saw that can basically take on the properties of anything you can imagine. I would assume that if you fold it into the shape of a gun, it'll fire deadly paper bullets. If you were to give this paper to like an origami expert, they could make anything. It'd be wild. Holy cow.
Robodude is a small plastic robot with accompanying control device. Robodude can be spoken to through the device and will respond and act with a high degree of programmed intelligence, perhaps autonomous.
Okay.
Robodude avoids most questions about its origins, merely stating it is the intellectual property of Dr. Wondertainment, but will proudly proclaim it possesses 350 robo-accessories. These accessories, which all seem to come from its small torso cavity, can produce effects as varied as a water pistol, an actual pistol, a flamethrower.
Bro, this guy looks like he hates his job. He's like, what have I done with my life? All my degrees, all my PhDs for this?
Or a rocket launcher, or some form of atomic grenade.
Oh, atomic grenade, alright.
Robodude was delivered in a blank package to an SCP front company with the label simply reading, Merry Christmas. It's unclear if any Robodudes have ever appeared amongst the general public. Other robot creations from Dr. Wondertainment include General Beep, SCP-958, who
Beep.
educates children 13 and under on various military engagements and accomplishments before proceeding to teach them how to create anomalous weaponry from various miscellaneous parts.
What? So the first part of it, I'm like, okay, that's kind of neat, right? Like, it's like having a little robot friend or companion who's really good at military history and can teach you about military history and military tactics and go over battle strategies and stuff like that. But you're telling me this little robot can teach people, children, in fact, how to create anomalous devices, specifically weapons? What? What? Wondertainment not only makes anomalies, they make anomalies capable of making other anomalies. Dude.
SCP 1508, also known as Mikey the Chore Buddy, is composed of cardboard, paper, and plastic, and seeks to assist anyone nearby with any chore or menial activity, although its physical limitations often limit the speed at which it can complete a task.
Okay.
It is capable of altering its size to reach different heights or protect itself from certain danger, such as water damage, but Mikey will also tire out after enough work, needing to spend time to recover.
Oh, the little guy gets all tuckered out. Well, so far he seems harmless enough, right?
Dr. Wondertainment also deals with playful organisms in addition to toys.
Okay, so now we're going to learn about the
SCP
snails.
111, dragon snails. These creatures resemble ordinary snails, except they possess a warm-blooded metabolism, tentacles on their heads resembling horns, and significantly increased intelligence. Most notably, however, they each possess hollow sacs beneath their lower jaws containing methane, and utilizing a mechanism within their tracheas, they are capable of expelling small gouts of flame from their mouths.
Tiny fire-breathing
A
snails.
document of instructions attached to the dragon snail's packaging discusses the 6 different types of dragon snails, their diet of raw vegetables, and a parental notice warning that dragon snails are capable of causing house fires, and that Dr. Wondertainment is in no way responsible for any damage or injuries.
Okay. So those actually sound really neat. If they existed, I kind of would want to make a little terrarium for little tiny dragon snails. But I mean, I can see where they could be dangerous if, improperly kept or housed. If you just let them wander around your house and, get into your laundry basket full of dry clothes where they could start a fire or something. Yeah, terrible. But on their own, they're not really that bad. They're just little snails, and apparently they're much smarter than snails, so, you could probably give them some kind of rudimentary training. Interesting.
SCP-1550,
Holy cow, what?
known as Dr. Wondertainment's custom pets, are organisms hatched from eggs that morph their physical structure to best adapt to their hatching environment.
What?
If a custom pet egg is hatched underwater, it
looks like a demon potato. What is this?
Will be born with gills, enlarged lungs, flattened tails, or any other adaptation to help it survive in an aquatic environment. If born in a forest, it might have a layer of fur, or if born in a desert, it might be cold-blooded and have a tendency to burrow. If born in a standard apartment setting, it might be more affectionate and active than normal, and even have a filtering system in its mouth to filter dust and crumbs. The original species or form of the custom pet is unknown, and additionally, it's unclear how they reproduce, as they are born sterile.
Okay, so it's like a little egg you get, and depending on the environment that it's birthed into, it, is physically different. So, like you said, if it's born into a water environment, it'll have gills and fins and be able to adapt to that environment appropriately. The real question is their temperament. I mean, these things look like terrible nightmare creatures, but what is their temperament? If they're like docile, calm creatures, I mean, I could see how they might kind of be neat for some people. If they're as vicious as they kind of look, then I mean, was he just creating kaiju? I mean, Jesus.
or as the Dr. Wondertainment flyer states, pre-neutered.
Renewed.
Dr. Wondertainment also possesses their own amusement park, titled Wondertainment Land, and contained by the Foundation as SCP-949. While anomalous, Wondertainment Land is safe to explore, with no known casualties so far, and is staffed by humanoid individuals resembling animal mascots. Autopsies of these humanoids show they consist entirely of wool, and maintain a cheerful attitude, even when being dissected. Attractions within the park are similar to traditional theme park rides and games, with small notable differences.
So if there's no fatalities to have happened at the theme park, does they said that it was contained by the foundation. So I assume they have like a perimeter around it, and the foundation can control who can go into the park. Do they let people into the park? I mean, clearly the park was built by Wondertainment to be used by people. So interesting. And it's also interesting that such a strangely vague and anomalous like creator, if you will, like decided to put something down permanently, like a theme park. Like that's not moving, that's not going anywhere. Like, so to have like a permanent place with his name stamped on it is a little weird, but then it also kind of makes sense because it's a theme park. But are there Wondertainment factories somewhere that the Foundation knows about? Because it seems like they don't know where the toys or these creatures or any of this stuff comes from. So clearly he didn't like buy up a bunch of land and build factories and stick a Wondertainment sign on the outside of it. So it's kind of funny that he threw up an entire theme park and slapped his name on it.
Haunted house mysteriously stitches additional limbs and a human head to guests.
What?
Without them realizing, and the head will continue to provide information on other attractions at the park.
What?
The River Rapids ride features strange sea creatures with randomly placed limbs, eyes, and gills. And the Bumper Cars ride involves the bumper cars moving autonomously and trying to consume one another.
Oh, okay.
On occasion, the entire theme park will disappear for several days, reappearing with new attractions. A flyer for the park indicates that on some future date...
Well, I said the park wasn't going anywhere, and I stand corrected.
The park will have a grand opening, indicating that the O5 Council of the Foundation will be escorted by Dr. Wondertainment representatives so that they may attend. Likely the most notable creations of Dr. Wondertainment, however, are their Little Misters line.
Okay,
a series
right.
of 20 humanoids, each possessing highly anomalous traits.
Okay, like I said, the last video we did was Mr. Life and Mr. Death, but that only counted as one Little Mister, so they said there's 20 Little Misters in total. All right, so let's hear about some of these guys. I don't know if they're going to go over all of them, but let's see.
All of the Little Misters are identified as safe or Euclid class, and each possesses a name somewhat related to their anomalous properties. Most of the Little Misters resemble normal humans, although there are exceptions. Mr. Forgetful, SCP-909, is a Caucasian male suffering from permanent anterograde amnesia, meaning it cannot normally form new memories. However, when Mr. Forgetful writes down anything still in its very recent memory, it causes anyone involved in the experience to forget the information.
So when it says it causes anyone involved in the experience to forget the information, does that mean, say, you and Mr. Forgetful go on Monday to the ice cream store and eat some chocolate ice cream? He will forget about that, and if he doesn't forget about it and he writes it down, okay, so me and Jim Bob went to the ice cream store on Monday and had chocolate ice cream. That means Jim Bob will retroactively forget about that experience. So it's kind of like the only person who does remember it is Mr. Forgetful. No one else can remember it. And then half the stuff in Mr. Forgetful's head, he forgets as well. That's a weird one. Okay.
SCP-1799, Mr. Laugh, resembles a clown and possesses the ability to cause extreme laughter with anything it says. Mr. Laugh has no control over this ability, and it seems that laughter seems to cause some sort of physical pain to the entity.
Ooh.
Additionally, Mr. Laugh is also capable.
So I would assume that Mr. Laughter doesn't actually laugh that much, which is why they have a picture of a sad clown here, because he could say something terrible and horrible, something completely out of place and completely not funny, yet people will find it hilarious. And I'm sure, he personally doesn't find the jokes funny because he probably doesn't even attempt to tell jokes because laughter hurts him. Interesting.
Capable of a number of anomalous actions related to clowns, such as removal of his limbs, pulling a string of colored cloth from his mouth, and extruding colored smoke from multiple orifices. Mr. Laugh cannot seem to control these actions either, and also seem to cause it pain.
Oof. It doesn't seem too bad for people around Mr. Laugh, unless you're like, driving a car and he says something and you laugh so hard you crash your car. Something like that. Aside from that, in a standard environment where you can just, be around him and walk away if you wanted to, he seems rather harmless. But on the flip side, it seems like it's almost a torture for him. He can involuntarily do all these clown related things, but it always causes him pain. That's it's kind of messed up, man. It's kind of like Mr. Life and Mr. Death, where his whole purpose is just to live, like have the pain of living and growing, and then have the pain of growing old and dying. Like that's his whole existence. Oh man.
Mr. Soap continually produces soapy liquids from his skin. Miss Sweetie produces candy that causes males who consume them to become transformed into hard candy constructs.
Oh, snap.
And Mr. Fish seems to be a completely normal individual who happens to have a fish head.
Mr. Fish. A completely normal individual. Everything about him is normal except for the fact that he has a fish head. Oh my goodness. All right, let's go, Dr. Wondertainment.
Mr. Life and Mr. Death, SCP-1007, is a male humanoid that goes through the entire human life cycle in the course of 75 minutes.
That sucks.
He ages approximately 1 year per minute, experiences rapid painful bone and muscle growth early on, and suddenly dies once the time is up. A key that accompanies Mr. Life and Mr. Death can be inserted between its shoulder blades, reversing any effects, including death and decay, reverting the subject to a newborn. It's unclear if SCP-1007 is both Mr. Life and Mr. Death, or if there is a separate counterpart that is uncontained as of yet.
I think it's the same
Lost,
person.
SCP-920, cannot be contained or transported by any known means.
Lost.
It causes anyone attempting to move it to become confused and lost, and will also cause radar systems and GPS to malfunction, as well as earthquakes and strange weather formations. Additionally, those in its presence feel compelled to join it as it wanders, walking across the earth.
So electronic devices malfunction. I'm assuming, since it said any attempts to move him by any means fail, so I'm assuming that if you throw him onto a boat, it would sink. If you throw him into a car, the wheels would fall off, or the engine wouldn't run, or if you threw him onto a plane, the plane would crash. And people around him kind of get pulled into his lost haze of wandering around. So I guess turns out Moses was Mr. Lost and he wandered around in the desert with a group of people because they couldn't help it. That's what it makes me think of, right? Especially in this world of the SCP Foundation where things that are history or story or fable in our world turn out to be something caused by an SCP in the SCP world. So maybe Moses was just Mr. Lost here.
Mr. Lie, SCP 2284, is one of the most dangerous of the Little Misters,
Mr.
with
Lie.
everything it says or writes being completely believed by others as the objective truth.
Ooh, that's super dangerous.
Questions asked by Mr. Lie seem to not adhere to this property, but otherwise Mr. Lie is incapable of stating the truth. To make matters worse, Mr. Lie seems to have a clear understanding of its own abilities, and utilizes them to manipulate others.
Oh wow, that's super
those
dangerous.
In the SCP Foundation.
That is incredible, dude. If your power was to make anyone believe anything you said, regardless of its validity, oh my goodness, you could turn entire countries upside down with that. That's insane.
Despite the dozens of Wondertainment creations contained by the Foundation, Dr. Wondertainment continues to be a mystery. Their means and motives of creating and sharing these unique inventions are just as unknown as their identity. Rumors abound about who or what Dr. Wondertainment is, and you can feel free to think what you wish. But it's likely that new toys will continue to find their way into the Foundation's hands. What is clear, however, is that Dr. Wondertainment has the hearts and minds of children in their thoughts.
Let's see here. Dr. Wondertainment is not responsible for any injuries incurred by use of this product or project. Terms of use available at Redacted. By purchasing from Dr. Wondertainment, you agree to not hold Dr. Wondertainment or any of Dr. Wondertainment's affiliates accountable for injuries or damages occurred by your product. Thank you for your purchase. All right, guys, that was Dr. Wondertainment. Definitely a really different group of interest. Maybe not. It's pretty interesting. He definitely gives off the Willy Wonka vibes, right? With the whole, top hat, the way he's presented in bright colors, the mustache, clearly looking very exotic. And then, of course, having, he's got to have a factory or something somewhere producing this stuff, as well as, most of his stuff is geared towards children. So he definitely gives off a very strong Willy Wonka vibe. The things he creates, the things that he's capable of producing, like the playset, where the playset is an anomalous object, but the user of the playset can create anomalous objects using an anomalous object. That kind of lends a little bit of credence to this theory that Wondertainment is a reality warper, or possibly a group of reality warpers. Yeah, man. And because of that, he actually reminds me less of Willy Wonka and more of the warden from Super Jail, which the warden from Super Jail himself is like kind of inspired by that Willy Wonka. Or I would think that the Mad Hatter from the Alice in Wonderland book came probably before Willy Wonka or Super Jail, all that kind of stuff. They're probably all kind of variations on the Mad Hatter character trope type deal. But I definitely get Dr. Wondertainment, to me, feels like Willy Wonka and the warden from Super Jail had a baby, and they have all the eccentricities of Willy Wonka and the focus on children like Willy Wonka, with all the reality warping. Some of the stuff is almost body horror type stuff that the warden gets up to. That's what it feels like to me. But it's really interesting because who knows, man? Is it an individual? Is it a group of people? Is it an entire company? I'm definitely interested to hear a little bit more about some of his creations because his creations seem really cool, and I'm sure that there's other videos on those creations. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, kind of getting holes punched in your brain like I am over here. Just the possibilities for this Wondertainment guy or the anomalies he creates are just so like limitless that my brain is kind of having a hard time just like catching up to the idea of what's going on. So yeah, I hope you guys liked it. If you did, please like, subscribe. As always, leave a comment down below. Let me know what other SCP videos I should check out, what other crazy anomalous items I should check out. Leave those down in the comments and we will get to them as soon as we can. And as always, guys, thank you so much for hanging out, stopping by, checking out the video. Take care of yourselves. Have a great day.